When I caught my fiancé on bed with his mistress, my world shattered like the Paris snow globe at my feet. Another woman straddled Dominic in our bed. Baby, let me explain. Dominic reached for his robe, stumbling toward me. This isn't what it looks like. I backed away, shaking my head. This couldn't be real. We had plans, a future. The villa in Tuscany we'd toured last month, the spring wedding we'd been planning. No. My back hit the hallway wall. There has to be some mistake. Camilla's laugh pierced through my spiral of denial. Oh honey, the only mistake was thinking he actually loved you. Shut up, Dominic snapped at her, but she just stretched across our bed like a satisfied cat. Why keep up the charade, darling? She examined her manicured nails. You already got what you wanted. The transfer went through yesterday, didn't it? My knees buckled. Transfer? The properties your parents left you. Camilla's eyes gleamed. The ones you so trustingly signed over to your beloved fiancé last week. That was the whole point, wasn't it, Dom? The room tilted sideways. The lawyer's office. The documents. Dominic's insistence that combining our assets would make things easier once we were married. Tell her she's lying, I pleaded, but Dominic wouldn't meet my eyes. Tell me this isn't true. His silence crushed what was left of my heart. 6 million in real estate. Camilla slid off the bed, wrapping herself in my favorite cashmere throw. Not bad for a year's work, though I must say you dragged it out longer than necessary. My parents' legacy. Everything they'd worked for. Everything they'd left to secure my future. Gone. I trusted you. The words came out broken, barely a whisper. Val, don't. I pressed my hands against my ears, but couldn't block out Camilla's satisfied laughter, or the sound of my world crumbling around me. You know, Camilla's voice dripped honey-coated poison. Since we're having this lovely moment of truth, why don't you ask your dear fiancé about your parents' accident? My blood turned to ice. The room tilted, memories of that rainy night flooding back. The phone call, the crash, the funeral. What? The word scraped my throat. Go ahead. Camilla's eyes glittered. Ask him if it really was black ice that sent their car off that cliff. I snapped my head toward Dominic, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might shatter my ribcage. No. His face transformed. The mask of contrition melted away, replaced by something cold and unfamiliar, something that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface. Did you? I couldn't finish the question. My tongue felt like lead. Did I what? He cocked his head, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Order the brake lines cut? The casual shrug of his shoulders drove the knife deeper into my heart. Had to be done. Your parents weren't exactly keen on the idea of us together, and those properties. He clicked his tongue. Well, they weren't going to sign them over willingly. My legs gave out. I slid down the wall, the world spinning around me. Mom's last call, Dad's concerns about Dominic, the way they'd begged me to wait, to think things through. You killed them. The words came out as a broken whisper. You murdered my parents. Yes, I did. Dominic stepped closer, his expression hardening. The man I thought I loved vanished, replaced by a stranger with empty eyes. And if you're thinking of running to the police with this touching revelation, he traced a finger down my tear-stained cheek. Well, accidents do tend to run in families, don't they? I jerked away from his touch, bile rising in my throat. You really should be more careful, Val. He crouched down beside me, his voice dropping to a whisper. Especially given your history of mental instability. My head snapped up. What? Camilla's laughter echoed through the room. Oh, you didn't know? There's quite a paper trail documenting your declining mental state. Therapist notes, prescription records, concerned emails from friends. She examined her nails. It's amazing what money can buy these days. No one would believe. Everyone already does. Dominic's fingers dug into my arm. Who do you think they'll trust? The grieving, unstable daughter who never accepted her parents' tragic accident, or the successful businessman who's been trying so hard to help his poor, troubled fiancé? The walls closed in. Every dinner party, every sympathetic glance, every concerned question about my well-being. It had all been part of their plan. Face it, sweetie. Camilla draped herself across Dominic's shoulders. You've already lost. The smart thing would be to take the generous settlement we're offering and disappear. I stared at them both, these monsters wearing human skin. My entire life had been a carefully constructed lie, and I'd walked right into their trap. Of course, Dominic's grip tightened until I winced. If you choose to be difficult about this. His other hand wrapped around my throat, not squeezing, just resting there. I'll send you to your parents. I collapsed to my knees, tears streaming down my face. My body shook with sobs that felt like they were being ripped from my soul. The plush carpet beneath me, the one I'd picked out with such care for our future home, pressed against my skin like needles. Camilla's laughter cut through my grief. Oh darling, look at her. Pathetic little thing, isn't she? I lifted my head just enough to see her wrap herself around Dominic, her red-painted nails trailing down his chest. Why don't we get back to what we were doing? She pressed herself against him. Let her have her little breakdown out there. I'm not finished with you yet. Dominic's eyes met mine one last time, cold and empty, before he gripped Camilla's waist. Don't leave, Val. We're not done discussing terms. The door clicked shut, but it wasn't enough to muffle their sounds. Camilla's exaggerated moans pierced through the wooden barrier. Our bed creaked rhythmically. I pressed my hands against my ears, but couldn't block out their cruel laughter between gasps and groans. My stomach heaved. Every sound was another knife in my heart, another reminder of how completely they destroyed everything I'd believed in. The tears wouldn't stop. They blurred my vision until the cream-colored walls swam before my eyes. My parents' faces flashed through my mind, their warm smiles, their warnings about Dominic, their final goodbye. The truth of their death crushed my chest until I could barely breathe. More giggles and moans filtered through the door. They were putting on a show, making sure I heard every moment of their betrayal. I curled into myself on the floor, my forehead pressed against the carpet, and let my tears soak into the expensive fibers while the sounds of their lovemaking echoed through the hall as I fainted. My head throbbed as consciousness crept back. Cold tile pressed against my cheek, and the kitchen's harsh fluorescent lights stabbed at my eyes. I blinked, trying to orient myself. A wet sound drew my attention. There they were. Dominic had Camilla pinned to our kitchen table, the one where we'd shared countless meals together. His hands roamed over her body, while she wrapped her legs around his waist. Look who's finally awake. Camilla's lips curved into a cruel smile between kisses. Poor thing couldn't handle the truth. Dominic pulled back just enough to look at me, his expression a mix of amusement and contempt. You always were weak, Val. Remember when you fainted at that charity gala? So embarrassing. God, she's pathetic. Camilla ran her fingers through Dominic's hair. At least she provided some entertainment, the way she was on the floor. She threw her head back and laughed. I tried to push myself up, but my arms trembled too much to support my weight. The room spun, as their mocking laughter echoed off the kitchen walls. Should we tell her the rest? Camilla's eyes glittered with malice. Or do you think she'll pass out again? Dominic smirked. Maybe we should wait. I'm not finished with you yet. He captured her mouth in another deep kiss, while I lay there, unable to look away from their display. Besides, Camilla broke away to shoot me another vicious smile. Watching her suffer is half the fun. Their lips finally parted, and they both turned to stare at me like I was their evening's entertainment. My legs shook as I pulled myself up, gripping the counter for support. Why? My voice cracked. I loved you, Dominic. I gave you everything. Camilla's lips curled into a sneer. Because you're nothing. A placeholder. A stepping stone. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut, but something else bubbled up beneath the pain. Heat rushed through my veins, burning away the tears. You evil bitch! The scream tore from my throat. You manipulative, lying. I lunged at her, fingers curved into claws, aiming for her perfect face. The crack of Dominic's palm against my cheek sent me sprawling. Before I could recover, his hand tangled in my hair. He slammed my face against the table, pressing my cheek into the cold surface. Touch her again, he growled in my ear, and I'll kill you, slowly. His grip tightened until my scalp burned. Do you understand? Camilla's laughter rang out behind me. Oh, look at her now. Not so brave anymore, is she? I asked you a question. Dominic yanked my head back, then slammed it down again. Stars exploded behind my eyes. Do you understand? Yes, I whimpered, tasting blood where my lip had split. Dominic released my hair, and I slumped against the table. My head throbbed where he'd slammed it, and the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. Should we tell her now? Camilla's voice dripped with honeyed malice. I think she's ready for the grand finale. Go ahead, love. Dominic's hand stroked down Camilla's back. She needs to understand exactly what she lost. I pushed myself up, my arms trembling. Blood from my split lip dripped onto the pristine white tablecloth. Camilla's hand drifted to her stomach, and my heart stopped. No, please, no. You see, Val, she purred. Dominic and I have been planning our future for months, and now, her perfectly manicured fingers splayed across her abdomen. Well, let's just say you're not the only one who thought they'd be giving him his firstborn. The room tilted, my knees buckled, but I caught myself on the edge of the table. 3 months along. She beamed up at Dominic. We found out last week. Isn't it wonderful? My stomach heaved. 3 months, the same time I'd been trying to convince Dominic we were ready to start our own family. A son, Dominic said, his hand joining hers on her still flat stomach. The heir I always wanted, with a woman worthy of the Ricci name. No, I whispered, but the evidence was there in their matching cruel smiles. Camilla reached into her purse and pulled out a small black and white photo. She slid it across the table toward me. Would you like to see your replacement? My fingers trembled as I picked up the ultrasound image. There, in grainy black and white, was the proof that everything, my relationship, my dreams, my future, had been a lie. Congratulations, I choked out, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. You've won. Camilla's triumphant laugh echoed through the kitchen. Oh, darling, I won a long time ago. You just didn't know it yet. Dominic's fingers twisted in my hair again, yanking me up so hard my feet left the ground for a moment. I cried out, tears streaming down my face as he dragged me across the kitchen floor. Stand up, he snarled, forcing me to my feet, his face inches from mine, eyes dark with rage. Now listen carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. His grip tightened, until I thought he'd tear my scalp open. I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with Camilla's perfume. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, and I mean anyone, I will make you suffer in ways you can't imagine. His voice dropped to a whisper that made my blood run cold. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be begging for death, but I won't give you that mercy. Please, I whimpered, trying to ease the pressure on my scalp. I won't. He slammed me against the wall, knocking the breath from my lungs. I'm not finished. His other hand wrapped around my throat. I have connections you can't even dream of. There's nowhere you can hide that I won't find you. No one who can protect you from what I'll do. Camilla's heels clicked across the floor as she approached. And trust me, darling, he can be very creative when he wants to be. She traced a manicured nail down my tear-stained cheek. We both can. Do you understand what will happen if you open your pretty little mouth? Dominic's fingers flexed against my throat. I nodded frantically, spots dancing in my vision from lack of air. Say it, he growled. I understand, I choked out. I won't tell anyone, I swear. Say it again. His grip tightened, fingernails digging into my skin. Something snapped inside me. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth from where he'd slammed me earlier. I gathered it, and spat directly in his face, watching the red streak down his perfect cheek. Fuck you. The crack of his hand across my face sent me sprawling onto the marble floor. My head spun as he grabbed my ankle, dragging me across the foyer towards the front door.